Okay, as you can see here, I got my clamps on my exhaust, and I went and took it up the street, and I noticed air is leaking out of this thing. So we're leaking exhaust gas out of here, and the turbo's not spooling. Now, putting these clamps on here did make the air-fuel ratio a lot richer, and I think that's because the turbo's spinning a lot faster and it's sucking more air through the carburetor, which pulls more fuel out. So I'm actually going to have to step down on the jet because the air-fuel ratio wide open throttle was about 10-to-1. So which is good, we're making progress, we're getting closer to where we need to be. I'm going to go ahead and cut this section out and weld just a 1.5 inch pipe in here, and then I'll put it back together and take it for another test run. I'm going to leave a link in the description so you know which flex connector not to buy, because this thing leaked like crazy. Okay, well I got my new mid pipe on there. There's no more flex thing in there anymore, and then I went ahead and put those clamps on there, so it's not leaking, it's barely leaking any out of here now. There's just a little bit of leak, and then this obviously is not leaking anymore. I also tightened down the clamps that are on the cold side of the turbo a lot more. In addition, I made sure I double checked that these are really tight. As it sits right now, the air-fuel ratio at wide open throttle is at about 11.0 to 1, which is right about where you want it on a turbo vehicle. Now, as I was tuning, I noticed that I'm getting more boost now, but I'm still not building the boost that I should be. I have a 12-pound wastegate spring in the turbocharger, so I should at least make 12 pounds of boost. So what we're looking at is the head gasket right here, and it's obviously leaking. And this leak might be bad enough to bleed off compression. It also could be sucking air into the cylinder, and that can make the right cylinder run lean. And I noticed that when I pulled the spark plug on this cylinder, the spark plug tip on this cylinder was white, and on the left cylinder it was black. Well, it's no wonder I couldn't make any boost with this engine. The right cylinder tested at 90 psi, and the left cylinder tested at just over 70 psi, and that's with the throttle wide open on a cold engine. I'm going to pull the cams out, I'm going to pull the cylinder head off, I'm going to sandblast the cylinder head, I'm going to medium blast the cylinders, I'm going to hone the cylinders, I'm going to put new rings in it, new valve stem seals. I'm going to check the condition of the valves, and so long as the valves aren't too terribly worn, I'll go ahead and just clean up the valves, I'll relap them, and then I'll put the original valves back in. And then as far as the cylinder head goes, I'll make sure that I clean up the carbon deposits on the cylinder head. Same thing with the pistons as well. I'll make sure that there's no carbon deposits on the cylinder head. I'll clean that in ultrasonic cleaner. I'll get everything cleaned up and put it back together, and once this is all done, once the motor's squared away, then I'm going to go ahead and do a final compression check. And as long as we're getting at least 140 psi, I'm going to then go ahead and see if we can get this darn turbo to build some boost. So let's go. One little tip I'm going to give before I actually start tearing this engine down, and I do this on all my engines, and you'll notice on the XS build I did this as well. With a paint pen that you can buy at Walmart or any arts and crafts store, I mark on the cam and I mark on the crank, so I'm absolutely sure I'm putting everything back together the same. Now, this is an unnecessary step that you don't need to do as long as you follow the timing marks, but I find that it helps me when I'm putting it back together be absolutely positive that I'm putting it back together the exact same way that it came apart. Because if you've never taken apart an engine before and you're relying just on the timing marks, you might get confused or not have as much confidence in yourself as you would if you just marked everything. Because when you mark everything, you know for sure. If your marks you make a mark on the chain and the cam on this cam, and you do the same thing on this cam, make a mark here and make a mark here, and then we make a mark on the crank, got a mark there. Now you know with 100% certainty, especially if you're new to working on engines, and especially 4-strokes, that when you go to put it together, it's going to be in the exact same spot that it was when you took it apart. As long as you leave the cam chain still attached, which I'll give you a little tip when I'm taking it off, and as long as you leave the crank in roughly the same position, this is not going to change. With that said, everybody, that's going to do it for this video. I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you liking. Hit that subscribe button. In the next video, we're going to tear down the top end of this motor, and as I said already, we're going to do the internals on it. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.